May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Waking up in the morning in the dark is a strange experience, especially when it is nearly 7 a.m. and it is still dark outside. The Northern Hemisphere experiences the darkest time of the year this season, which happens to overlap with Advent, this 4 weeks of waiting for Jesus' birth. Advent is countercultural because it asks us to wait, to prepare, to stay in that darkness a little longer than we are comfortable. In deep December, we celebrate the birth of Jesus, the cosmic Christ incarnate, the celebration of when God came to earth among us as a child. But we aren't there yet. Today, we wait in the dark, we prepare, we have hope. And Jesus came into the world as a real, live baby, as Christine emphasized. How do we prepare for this child to be born? Perhaps we need a church manual. As Vicki Allen, one of our deacons, coined this season, what to expect when you're expecting Jesus. Our Advent scriptures today give one piece of advice that I know is true. Keep awake and have hope. Keep awake with the infant, keep awake in the darkness, keep awake when we don't want to be awake, when we'd rather be sleeping. And while we are in the dark, have hope. The Old Testament passage from the Psalms is a passage of hope, but not a saccharine hope, not a hope that wants you to erase reality. A hope that admits to suffering. The psalmist cries, "O Lord of hosts, how long? How long? You have fed us with the bread of tears and given us tears to drink in full measure." We just finished a season of talking about nourishment, and this psalmist, the writer of our Hebrew Bible passage today, has been on a strict diet of tears. But still, they sing to God, "Restore us, O God of hosts, let your face shine, that we may be saved." They have hope in the darkness, that God has not abandoned them, but is with them in their tears, and so it is with us. And our New Testament passage today from the Gospel of Mark tells of a time of darkness, when darkness covered the whole land, when the sun didn't shine and the moon didn't glow. And so I ask you today, what has darkened the sky in your life? I heard this week that over 100 people at ESPN lost their jobs. When unexpected or uncontrollable things happen, we want to fall asleep and numb ourselves. Keep awake and have hope, Jesus says. We see corruption in our national leadership, and now our nation faces a prospect of a tax bill that many people are confused about, scared about, for their businesses, for the retirement, for the nonprofits that rely on donors who are incentivized by tax-deductible donations like ours. And we are kept in the dark. We hardly know what it says. Yet Jesus says, keep awake, have hope. We have seen so many women in these last few weeks say, "Me too." And people are finally believing women, challenging a culture of disrespect. Keep awake, have hope, Jesus says. We see continued communities and families ripped apart because of strictly enforced immigration laws, keep awake, have hope. On Thursday, December 14th of this year, we remember the 5-year anniversary of the shooting at Sandy Hook, with a vigil here in this place at 7 p.m. We see continued suffering caused by gun violence, yet Jesus says, keep awake, have hope. And if the darkness of this world were not enough, we each have our own suffering, our own mental and physical health to balance, our own families to worry about. Yet Jesus tells us in the midst of this to have hope and stay awake. I promised myself I would never say to you to stay woke from the pulpit. But Jesus is testing me today. I just wanted to share a moment of humor that, in reflecting on this concept of keeping countercultural hope, of staying awake, I was really wondering, and I asked my partner Kira last night in an existential wonder, I said, how do we do this? She says, what do you mean? You watch the news? And I said, no, I mean, why do we pay attention? To what end? And she simply replied, to the end of our sanity, and walked away. I don't think she got my existential pondering. But these are the questions. Why do we keep awake, and to what end? Because when we see so much suffering in the world, when our tears are given to us in measure too large to drink, when we see the suffering of the world, we need to know what is not God, so that when we feel the kicking of God in the womb, we know what is God. This is why we stay awake, so we can identify when Christ has come. And I encourage you this year to stay attuned to the season of Advent. It is a season of embracing darkness, of embracing the things that bring pain and suffering, of staying awake to the places that make us uncomfortable as a spiritual practice. Doing this makes way for the light of Christ to come into our lives anew at Christmas time. Being in the darkness makes us long for the light of Christ, for the promise of life and love that will come, not always when we are expecting it. So keep awake and have hope as we anticipate the presence of this baby and the promise of Advent. And as a tangible example of hope today, I want to highlight the work of the Christian Outreach Committee. Every Sunday, there are multiple ways to give. If you put money in the plate or in a white envelope, it goes to the general budget of this church, paying for our staff, our building, our mission, our vision. Many people choose to make their pledges outside of Sunday morning. For instance, I log on to my Liberty Bank account each month and send a check to the church that goes automatically. This is an act of worship and praise for me. Another way to give is of your time and talent, and this is what the Outreach Committee falls under. But you can also give to the Outreach Committee through money and through green envelopes in your pews. Do you see those green envelopes in your pews? Quarterly, the Christian Outreach Committee changes which organization or mission the green envelopes will support. And this quarter will go to collecting presents for a family who cannot afford Christmas gifts, with the giving tree that I mentioned during announcements. And indeed, there is a tree in the parish hall in that back room where we have coffee hour, where you can bring from a label a gift to a family. And this year, the family we are supporting is a mother of 8 with 2 sets of twins, ages 1 and 2, along with some older youth, and a father who is recently unemployed. So this is a celebration, a way that we can give and have tangible hope this year. And in the spirit of hope, I want to share a celebration today. Last quarter, when we collected in green envelopes money for an organization supporting vulnerable youth in Middletown, we raised $650 together. That's a big celebration. And we are donating that money to Women and Family Center, whose mission it is to care for vulnerable youth. And today, and this is sort of from sermon into offering moment, today when we celebrate this gift of $650, we actually have the director of this organization here to receive it and to share with us about our collective hope, what it can do tangibly in a community. Because when so much is swirling on around us, we need those tangible ways that we can see the light of Christ in our community that is already here, but not yet. Keep awake. Have hope. Let it be so. Amen.